What's up, everyone? My name's Samantha, and I'd like to welcome you to the Neuro Squad. Today, I'll be highlighting a neuroscientist named Nathan Smith. He was the first black man to be awarded a Ph.D. in neuroscience at the University of Rochester. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet with Smith and learn more about his life. So let's dive into his story. Nathan Anthony Smith was born and raised in Burley, Louisiana by his mother after his father passed away when he was young. As one of 4 siblings, Smith grew up in a predominantly white community, which prompted him to attend Xavier University, which is a historically black institution. His reasoning for wanting to attend was that he wanted to see other people who looked like him pursuing academia and STEM. The community and confidence Smith experienced during his time at Xavier made him feel like he could take on the world. However, during his time at Xavier, Smith suffered the tragic loss of his brother to heart disease, which really set the idea of medicine into motion. At this time, Smith believed he was going to get an M.D. in cardiovascular medicine, yet he decided to take a year off in order to grieve the loss of his brother, and during that year he studied orthopedics at the University of Buffalo. And while he did not love orthopedics, he did realize his passion for research. During our talk, Smith recounted how he realized he did not want to be an M.D. because he wanted to be able to help masses of people by doing research. Smith credits his passion for neuroscience to the novel Gifted Hands by Ben Carson. Alongside this, Smith emphasized how truly impactful his mother and grandmother were in making him the man he is today. One thing that he said has always stuck with him is, "You must keep going. In order to beat them at their own game, you have to become educated. Education is the key. They cannot take that away from you. You must keep going and keep pushing," something that his grandmother used to tell him all the time. When it comes to education, Smith graduated from Xavier University of Louisiana in 2002 with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology. Briefly, Smith attended the University of Buffalo and was in the Associate Medical School program. He then went on to receive his Master's in Science from the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry, then his Ph.D. from the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry in neuroscience in 2013. Upon doing this, Smith became the first ever black man to receive a Ph.D. from the neuroscience program at the university. In his postdoctoral education and research, Smith was a fellow at 2 different institutions, the first from 2013 to 2015 and the second from 2015 to 2017. One was at the Department of Bioengineering at the University of Utah/Boston University. His second was at the Center for Neuroscience Research and Children's National Research Institute. Since his postdoctoral work, Smith has worked at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. as the assistant professor in pediatrics and pharmacology and physiology, as well as the Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. as the director of basic neuroscience research. Recently, he has returned to his alma mater at the University of Rochester Medical Center in Rochester, New York as the associate professor in the Department of Neuroscience and as the associate dean for equity and inclusion for research and research education. Alongside these accomplishments, Smith has been recognized by the Cell Press as 100 Inspiring Black Scientists in America. Smith was also a 2021 American Association for the Advancements of Science Fellow. In his current role as the Associate Dean for Equity and Inclusion, Smith is extremely passionate about changing lab culture so that women, people of color, and others are able to feel comfortable in the lab. His goal is to make sure everyone knows that they earn the right to be there. His research has been in several topics in neuroscience throughout his time, several of which we have discussed in class. However, since 2013, Smith's main focus has been neuroglia interactions. In his research, he focuses on neurons, astrocytes, microglia, and having this focus to better understand how they interact in a healthy human brain versus a person with ADHD, depression, or epilepsy. In his research, he not only hopes to better understand the actions, but hopes that this could potentially lead him to new drug targets and could cure or treat neurological diseases. When conducting his research, Smith has his own lab named the Smith Lab, in which they focus on neuromodulators and how they are present within the interactions between neurons, astrocytes, and microglia. In his research statement, he conveys that transgenic animals, electrophysiology, pharmacology, behavioral assays, and 2-photon calcium 2+ imaging and acute slices of awake behaving animals are ways in which he is able to conduct his research. Smith's research is impacting the field of neuroscience through his discoveries on how the interactions between neurons and glia can impact abnormal, unhealthy brains. The Neuroscience Squad is currently in Neuroscience 175 at UNC Chapel Hill. Our second unit was based on neurons and glia and how they interact in the brain, as well as their differences and new research science have discovered to better understand neurons and glia. In class, we learned about recent headway on glial cells and how they function not only as neurons' sidekick. Smith's research directly relates to the information we discussed regarding how glial cells interact with neurons, specifically focusing on the learning objective from class, which is find and describe a recent research study regarding the roles of glia in the brain. Smith researches an answer to this learning objective as well as several others because he focuses on how glia interact in the brain. This focus allows him to gain knowledge on the structure, actions, and interactions that glia have in our brain, thus helping us to better understand glia cells, which is a part of neuroscience that we do not quite fully understand. As we learned in class, we typically only have information on neurons. Because of this, we do not quite understand how the role of glia impacts us. Smith's research, however, can help us to change the stereotype as he focuses on interactions glia have with neurons. I hope you all enjoyed learning about Nathan Smith, the first black man to receive a Ph.D. in neuroscience from the University of Rochester. We will catch you next week with another bio on a person of color, neuroscientist, on the Neuro Squad.